Joining me to explain more about this case is criminal defense attorney Pate, who's been with us throughout, giving us some legal analysis as this case has unfolded. So why didn't prosecutors seek the death penalty?
Well, that's a good question. We know that the district attorney thought a lot about it, probably talked to other family members, talked to the people in his office, and ultimately decided not to do it. The rule of thumb is if you have a case that's questionable on liability, in other words, it's not clear that he intentionally caused the death, then you're not going to ask for the death penalty, because many times that'll put the jury in a situation where they will more closely examine the evidence of guilt, knowing that it's a potential death penalty case.
To have not asked for the death penalty, sort of in an ironic way, sort of more guaranteed them a chance to win this case.
That's the philosophy. A lot of people believe that, especially prosecutors.
Right.
Yes.
What about the appeals? We saw an emotional defense team yesterday supporting Ross Harris and his innocence and saying that they have already begun the appeals process. So on what grounds?
Well, I'm certain they're going to challenge the judge's decision to try the sexting charges with the murder charges. I think once the prosecution convinced the judge to bring in that evidence, he was going to be convicted. It was a question of whether it was just felony murder or malice murder, because if you're trying to convince the jury that what your client did was an accident, they have to like your client. And I think once they heard all of this other evidence, they had no empathy whatsoever for Ross Harris. So I know they'll challenge that. I also think they're going to challenge some of the other evidence, negative character evidence, sleeping with prostitutes, that may not have been directly relevant to the elements of a murder charge. They'll probably ask that that should have been thrown out. And finally, we know during the trial, the jury was allowed to actually go out, physically see the SUV that Cooper died in. The defense objected strenuously to that, asked for a mistrial. I'm certain that's also going to be one of the grounds they use for
all of that prejudicial against the defendant. So chance of winning those appeals?
It's going to be difficult. I think Judge Staley Clark tried at every opportunity to be fair. I mean, she did move the case all the way from Cobb County to Brunswick to try to avoid the possibility of an appeal. Nobody knows ultimately. The first step is to go back in front of this judge requesting a motion for a new trial. If she denies it, then they go to the Georgia Supreme Court.
All right, sentencing set for December 5th. The judge has to decide just one of two things: life with parole or life without parole.
That's correct on the malice murder charge. She has two options: life with parole, which means he's parole eligible after 30 years, or life with no possibility of parole, meaning he will die in prison.
We'll get plus 40-some years, though.
Right. She can also add those either on top or kind of to run together to be concurrent with the underlying sentence. Bottom line is he's not getting out of prison for a long, long time, if at all.
All right. Pate, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
All right, guys, thank you.